Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, I wanted to make hopefully a short video. We'll see how it turns out, but a video about what to do in the event of emergency, or better yet, how to prepare for an emergency, that may or may not come. But that's the point of preparation is you're preparing for something that, well, let's face it. Look at the world around us. Things are going crazy. I mean, I've got friends coming up to me all the time and asking me about solar. Guys that were never interested in it before are suddenly interested in it now. Maybe some people can't put solar in. So there's some other options that we're going to go through today about what you can do, how you can get prepared, some of the things. Because listen, if you don't have electricity, you probably won't have heat. Most houses are on central air. You probably won't have water. If you have a well, if you're lucky enough to have a well, you're not going to have water, and your freezers are gonna thaw out. Okay, and so it's important to know, what you can do to get prepared. Okay, and so as if you guys have watched my channel, you know that I'm fully off grid. But not everybody is off grid. Not everybody can be off grid, but you can have a backup plan. And so the first thing I'd like to do is introduce you to this company, Santan Solar. Now, I'm not an affiliate. I'm not a dealer. I'm not, I buy like 50 panels from these people because they're super cheap, and I'm just passing on the deal to you guys. And these are good people, and they'll treat you really good. They've got several outlets. Looks like they've just opened up another one here in Savannah, Georgia. I know they have one in Arizona. And I think one in California. Not quite sure about that, but you talk about cheap. Solar has never been cheaper, guys. And you can buy. I bought 250 watt panels, each 250 watt panels for like $35 a piece, and then you have to tack on shipping, of course. But if you buy enough panels, the shipping is not that bad. It only winds up being around, like $50 a panel total, $35 and $15 per panel to ship it, if you buy enough panels to make it worth your while. But at any rate, I mean, even if you bought a few panels, it would still be worth your while. And bear in mind that these are used panels. These are not brand new panels, but they perform great. They're only a few years old, and these are high on my recommendation list. All right, so and of course, once you've purchased those, so now that you have your panels, you're going to have to make some decisions, on for one, what voltage is going to be your system. I would say for like a system that's not going to be a full-time system, to go ahead and just go with 12 volt. And the reason I say that is because 12 volt things are inexpensive. If you want something a little bit, that you're going to kind of rely on partially, let's say like an off-grid system, or like a grid tie, a grid tie system with a battery backup, you might want to think about maybe a 24 volt, and there's so many things that you have to think about when you're choosing the voltage. But I would say for most people who are just getting like a backup type system, like basically what we're doing here is we're making a solar generator. And you've all seen the solar generators. Let's talk about these for a sec, because the solar generators that they have nowadays, let's face it, they're not large enough to do anything. They have like maybe 50 watts of panels, 60 watt worth of solar, and they got one little battery in there. And okay, so they're rated at 1500 watts. For how long? 15 minutes? That's what you're going to wind up with if you buy one of these. They're not going to run your freezer. You're going to be sorely disappointed when the power goes down and you're going to try and run your house on this thing, and you're going to power up for 5 minutes and thing's going to die. All right, and then it's going to take 2 days to charge back up. So, at the bare minimum, you're going to need 1,000 watts of solar, and you're going to need a charge controller and an inverter that'll handle that. And at the very least, you're going to need at least golf cart batteries. I would say you're going to need a deep cycle battery. You're not going to be able to run this on like regular automotive. I mean, you can for a short time. I mean, in an emergency, sure, you can take some automotive batteries and you can actually use them. But this battery here, all right, so there's lots to choose from. You can get the Trojans, you can get the Duracell brand, you can get, this is what, Deca, You know, you're talking about $1.50 a piece. I would say for a house with priority loads, we'll talk about priority loads in a second. You know, with a house running on just priority loads, you're going to need a minimum of 4 of these babies, because you're going to have to get through the night, or you're going to have to learn how to run it during the day and shut it off during the night, and not open the fridge, not open the freezer, and have, you know, and live kind of like that. You know, you're kind of, you know, this is for an emergency. You're going to be in kind of an emergency mode, and so. But you're going to need some batteries, you're going to need an inverter, and you're going to need a charge controller, okay? And there's lots of these charge controllers you can choose from. The sky's the limit. I have a Xantrax charge controller. Let me type that in. So here it is. It's on eBay. You know, you're looking at $108 for a Xantrax. This is a C35. Read, make sure you know exactly what you're getting here. This will handle 35 amps. They make ones that'll handle 40 amps. They make them that'll handle 60 amps. Now the thing, if you're gonna, you know, if you're gonna go with a 12 volt system, you're gonna need a controller that can handle more amperage. If you're gonna go with a 24 volt system, you know, you're gonna need, because if you're dealing with 1,000 watts of solar, let's say, you're only gonna be making about 500 actual watts. And you're gonna be dealing with around 50 amps. So you're gonna need the C60, and that's gonna cost you a little bit more. If you go with a 24 volt system, you can probably get away with a C40 or a C35. So that's something to think about. And maybe in a future video we should go over some more of that. But there's just so much already on the internet regarding these things. You know, it's kind of a waste of my time and your time for me to go through this. You know, every little thing, every little part of this. So basically, you're going to be making a solar generator. It's going to have 4 batteries. You're going to have a charge controller. You're going to have an inverter. You're going to have solar panels. And the reason I recommend that you buy these things separate and that you put them together yourself and you get a working system. Now, let's say your city is not, you know, they won't let you have solar panels. You know, the zoning says you can't have it. Well, that's not to say that you can't just set them up temporarily, get everything working, and you know, and kind of get used to your system, get accustomed to it, and know exactly what everything's doing on there, so that in the future, you know, if something breaks down, you can repair it. And that's, you know, self-sufficiency is the key to you know, making it through some kind of a disaster, some kind of a you know, an episode maybe of a prolonged power outage or whatever may be the case. Wind power for most people, you know, a small wind generator is not going to be like something that you're going to want. There's a lot of work to put in these. I have several videos of me putting these together. Maybe I'll put a you know, something in the cards up here. But for the most part, you know, get the wind idea out of your head right now, unless you're going more permanent, you know, because you're talking about a pretty big investment in time and money. You know, the tower, the wires. You know, where are you going to put it? Are you in a windy area in the first place? Most people can glean something from the sun, but not everybody has good wind power. And so I wouldn't recommend this to everybody. Now, plan B, okay, plan B. Let's say I don't want a solar system. I don't, you know, it's just too complicated. There's too much, but I do understand a generator, okay? Let's look at these generators real quick. So Predator generators, you can buy these pretty cheap. Now, priority loads, we talked about priority loads, you know, whether you go with solar or whether you go with a generator, unless you buy a great big giant generator, which I wouldn't recommend because those are going to be hungry on fuel. Most of the time your house is not going to need a great big generator. If you just run a freezer, a well pump, and a few other little things, you can turn that generator on for an hour, 2 hours a day and keep everything maintained, okay? Keep the freezer frozen. You can keep, you know, you can pump enough water to take a bath, to flush all the toilets, to do the dishes real quick, and then shut your generator off, okay? I've lived like this for years and years, and I'm telling you, you know, that's how you want to go. And the priority loads would be, A, your well pump. You get a big enough generator, run your well pump, and it'll run almost anything in your house, trust me. You know, you're going to, that's the most important thing, is water. We're talking about survival here. Water and food. Right next to it is food. And you have to keep those freezers frozen, you know, and all of that type of thing. And number 3 is heat. Now, you're not going to be able to heat your house with a generator. You're not going to be able to even run the central heating for very long at all on a generator. And so you're going to have to come up with something, you know, something else with that as well. Okay, so the generator. Get one that runs on propane. You can get one that runs on diesel. I wouldn't recommend gas because gas doesn't store for very long. But propane, you can store it indefinitely. Now, if you live in an area where you can get a larger tank like this, even if your house doesn't run on propane, remember, what if natural gas is not available? What if the power goes down and you lose your natural gas? What if the power goes down, you have natural gas, but your central heating is down? Here's where propane comes in. Propane, you can store it for indefinitely, okay? And to get a larger tank, a 500-gallon tank would be an ideal situation, and to get a propane power generator. And what that does, that buys you time. That allows you to sit back and outside of panic mode, because you've got this contingency plan. You don't need to panic. You can turn your generator on for an hour or two a day. You keep your food frozen. You have water. You have everything you need to survive. And hopefully you've set some food aside as well. But, you know, more on that maybe on some other video. But it buys you time, you know, where you don't have to like freak out and totally go ballistic on what you're going to do. You can just stay home. You can run that generator. You can maybe wheel and deal with neighbors. You can, you know, somewhere sooner or later you're gonna figure out something else to get you beyond that point, you know, for when that day comes when you run out of propane. All right, but and there's all different kinds of sizes. You know, if you can't keep the big tanks, at least get a whole bunch of these small bottles. These small bottles will not run a generator for very long. You've only got, you know, these are only 15 or 20 pound bottles. All right, and so these smaller bottles here. And if you get a 100-pound bottle, great. But these smaller bottles, an hour a day, you've got maybe 10 days max with one little, and that's, and probably a lot less, okay, depending on the size of your generator. If you got a great big giant generator, it's going to burn up a bottle and no problem in one day, and that's it. And so, but the more propane you can store, the better. All right. So, and then there's some more things too. You know, if you're really wanting to get into this whole idea of solar, you know, you're gonna have to start thinking. You know, those priority loads is one thing we talked about. You know, most of the appliances that we have today are really power hungry. I happen to own a set of these LG front loaders. I run it on my solar system, on my batteries. It runs it just fine. Here's something else that I wanted to show you. Okay, so I have another video on these. Maybe I'll put that link up there too. But this little pump right here, these cost about 80 bucks, brand spanking new on eBay. And you can buy 2 or 3 of these. That's what I do. I buy a couple of them. They're kind of a copy off of this SureFlow here. And they're just, I can't say enough good about these things. They give me 2 years of constant use, okay? They'll pump upwards of 250 feet of head. If your well's any deeper than that, you're gonna have to go with something that packs a little bit more punch. But the reason why I recommend one of these little guys here is because you could literally run it off of a car battery and pump water, all the water you need in your house. And it's not gonna be your regular well pump that's gonna give you tons and tons of water where you can just sit there and run your bathtub. It's about a gallon a minute, okay? And if you have a pressure tank, if you already have a pressure tank system, that's great. If you don't have a well, you're gonna have to figure out something else there. Maybe you have to store some water. So, you know, this wouldn't be for you, but for those of you who have a well, you can actually put this on a flexible line and run a couple wires and just lower it by hand down into the well whenever you need it, and you can pump water. So that's something else that you guys might want to think about. You know, and there's all kinds of different ways you can go about this. You know, we could talk about this until the cows come home. I mean, the possibilities are endless. You know, you can have water storage tanks if you live in town. You know, if you get yourself, you know, 300-gallon water storage tanks, that can buy you some time. It's kind of like getting the propane, you know, and the generator. You know, these things can buy you time. Now, if you live in an apartment, you're going to have to store water, you know, and maybe buckets or jugs or containers or something, you know, but then you're looking at like a bug out situation, you know, where you're probably better off just getting the heck out of town, and so that's a whole different set set of things there, because then you have to prepare for what are you going to do, where are you going to go. Do you have a friend that you can go to? Are they preparing to the point where you know, you can have electricity and water and all of those things? It's something to think about. Okay, so we're going to talk about wood heat just for a second, because wood heat, now remember I said if you don't have the power, you can't run your central air. If you've got heating already on propane, fantastic. You know, that's ideal. Or maybe even wood. And I'll tell you something else that works real good. You know, we've got these pellet stoves. Now I know that can be kind of expensive, but you know, here's the thing: you can buy a whole bunch of pellets and you can have them on hand, and you know, and when the time comes, you can use them, and you can set one of these things up, let's say in the garage, you know, and they have tiny little flues, you know, you can just put them right through the roof of your you know, garage or whatever, and it just looks like a little vent pipe. And if you ever get to the point where you need heat, y'all can just move into the garage for a little while. I mean, this is survival. This is not everyday life. You know, you're just trying to come up with a way to get through the hard times. And you know, if you can install one of these inside of the house, this one makes 25,000 BTUs. They are kind of hungry with the pellets, I must say. I've had some friends that have these things, but like I said, you can stock up on the bags of pellets. You can buy them, you know, in the fall or no, excuse me, in the spring, you know, when they're really super cheap, or you can buy them in the fall, sometimes early fall. They'll have big pallets of them out in front of the stores. You can get them for really cheap. So check this out. This is a really good thing to have on hand for 124 bucks. This thing puts out 23,000 BTU plus. He says it'll heat 1,000 square feet. So if you got a bigger home than that, you're gonna need a couple of them. But kerosene, that's another good thing you can store. I believe, don't mark my word, but I believe you can run these things on like #1 diesel. That's what I was told. But somebody's gonna have to check that out on their own. And but you know, basically you can fill these puppies up. You can set them in the house in the middle of a room or whatever, and you can fire this thing off and it'll keep you warm in the wintertime. And so, you know, with that, guys, I'm gonna sign off. Thanks for watching until the end of the video. Please give thumbs up and subscribe if you like these sort of things. And if you guys have any ideas, put them in the comments down below for others to read. And maybe you guys have a contingency plan that you've set aside, and you can maybe share some of that, you know, about what you guys have done as well. But hey, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.